reason for going to India was twofold. It was a way to explore another culture and another set of traditions and worldview that was interesting to both Rob and I.
Xena, since I met you, I've been on this spiritual quest. I've been looking for the meaning to it all. Why don't you ever ask those questions?
The other reason, though, is keep in mind, in this season, this fourth season, we had Gabrielle on this quest. This was the season that she was searching. And many of the primal philosophical and spiritual ideas that have motivated the world come from India.
You have to embrace the way.
The way? I've heard about the way in Greece, Chin, Anatolia, and now India.
There's so much of philosophy and truth that has come out of India. If Gabrielle's on this quest that we put her on, it makes sense that she end up there looking for some truth.
What is the truth?
So you really want to know?
Yeah.
It's life. That we must revere it wherever we find it.
And I think she does learn a lot of things there. And that helps her to get closer to the truth, even though it might not look at it. Because the truth, ultimately, at the end of the season, it turns out that she's a warrior. But she had to go down this path of love and peace and total tolerance and non-resistance to realize that, although very important in the grand ideas of the universe, it was for somebody else. For her, she had already made her choice, and she didn't even know it, and that was to be a warrior.
With the way, we were trying to tell a story that had these deities appearing in the show. So whenever we went to an environment where the deities were, we were certainly probably trying to create more of a fairy tale is probably not quite the right word, but an otherworldly kind of lighting environment. We were less slavish about where the light comes from. Is that light from a window? Is that and tended to be sort of a little more probably theatrical, if you will. We heard in hindsight at Renaissance, when the Way went to air, that there'd been quite a bit of controversy amongst the Indian community. It was a surprise to us, because I think, like any of the Xena shows that dealt with, and we've dealt with various deities, you know, and they all go into different time zones, none of those stories intentionally were meant to offend people.
Krishna.
We, through the entire run of Xena, had been smart enough to pretty much stay away from living religions. There was exceptions. Well, certainly we had David and Goliath. We were pretty sure, though, that was such a part of the mainstream of both Christians and Jews that people were pretty secure with that story, that we could have a little fun with it. We did a character that had some resonance towards a Jesus kind of character, but once again, it was so distant from it. I don't think anyone would have been uptight. And the one time we did indeed approach a living religion, we got a little burnt.
I don't have the patience of Gabrielle, the love of Eli, or the serenity of my mentor, Lama. I'm just an angry, ass-kicking
warrior.
But I will say this, that I have talked to many Hindus from India who really liked the episode, so that a relatively small group of American Hindus, I mean, you know, people from a Western culture who have converted to Hinduism were offended by it. It's very unfortunate, and I don't think you can make light of it, but I thought we dealt with it in a very respectful way. In the whole series, Krishna is the only god she prays to. I give her some dialogue taken from Hindu scriptures, but I give it to her in a very reverent way, you know. So I think it was unfortunate, and certainly I still regret very much that anybody was offended by it, and sorry, but like I said, I've talked to enough Hindus, particularly Hindus who are, you know, immigrants to America who've come from India, and they found that either okay, either that's the way I have said it, either indifferent, or kind of liked it, or loved it.
In your next life, you will walk the way of a saint. However, you will never achieve that life if you don't follow the way you're on now.
The way of the warrior?
Yes.
You know, I have an enormous admiration for Hindu culture. Have my entire life, and Hindu scriptures, the Vedanta, and has always meant quite a bit to me. So that was very disturbing and disappointing when that didn't, when people took it the wrong way. But I'm glad now that people are seeing the episode and not being upset by it.
The fight scene with Indrajit and Xena was incredibly difficult. It was a complex fight scene by any Xena standards, and then that was compounded by the fact that she lost her arms at one stage, that he had 6 arms. It was a very difficult and time-consuming process. The prosthetics for Indrajit were not easily manoeuvred, and it was very difficult for him to sort of move with any kind of mobility and look like he was dangerous. We had to do an arm removal or 2 arm removals for Xena, which were approached in a pretty standard way, where once again we'd treat it as a background plate and element. We'd shoot clean background plates for the CG artists to basically remove her arms and then have backgrounds that they could deal with. And the arm removal was just treated with blue stockings on the arms.
You know, for all the controversy about the Hindu aspect of it, one of the things that we thought would be the most controversial is when Xena has her multiple arms cut off. I do remember some notes from the studio, but I know Rob was really committed to it, and there were very little changes done. And of course, by the time it aired, there was a whole other controversy that sort of belittled it. But I think that's the one that in Canada, they actually had a problem with how severe that looked. I'm pretty sure of that, there was a reaction in Canada to how far we went with the lopping the arms off.
But under no circumstances would I fight back. If I did, I would simply be perpetuating the cycle of violence that has ravaged the earth for centuries. And the truth is that can only be done through nonviolence.
There's no question that at that point that Gabrielle has reached the point where violence is not the answer for her. She's just seen too much of it, and she can't bear to be a part of that cycle of pain, and she wants to break it. You have to take a stand. Your own little world, you have to make a stand. And if she perpetuates violence, she's adding to the violence in the world. And if she stops it, if she breaks that cycle, that she helps to stop violence in the world. And so it's a very personal decision. I mean, whenever someone who's really committed to nonviolence in a philosophical sense, as opposed to a political sense, but it has to start somewhere. If you think violence is the ultimate evil, or the ultimate problem with the world, then you being one who says, I will not perpetuate violence actually, for a pacifist, it really is the only authentic point of view.
No. You and I stay together.
Gabrielle, we're headed in opposite directions in life.
All rivers run to the sea. We'll end up in the same place, I'm sure of it.
It's not only too tough a life for her, it's one that's going to take her away from Xena. And so she chooses, you know, this is the way I'm going to stay with Xena. Not only am I going to save Xena's life, if I possibly can, but also this is the way I'm going to stay her partner, her friend for forever. And you know, that's her accepting that she's a warrior. And for the rest of the series, I felt that Gabrielle had accepted the way of the warrior, which is another choice, another way to go.